Project Independence in You here at 88.1 FM, WCWP.org. We just spent an hour with Town Supervisor Judy Bosworth talking about all good things Project Independence and the town. We are celebrating 10 years of Project Independence in You on the radio right here at WCWP.org. It's hard to believe it's 10 years. Kristina has produced the show for 10 years. Otto has been the co-host for 10 years, right, Otto? Since
Actually, my first show was January 27th, 2012. So I wasn't involved in the first.
Yes, the first year, because when I was going over the spreadsheet, the first year, which was interesting, it was Ev, our fabulous Ev, who is on the show with us right now, and John Ryan, who is our current host. They did shows together. And plus Peter, John's partner, who our radio show we're all just familiar with, was also. So for that first year, it was like the three of them. And then we started bringing in senior hosts. And we also had 15-minute segments, which is crazy now to think of because we do hour interviews.
Right.
So it was kind of exhausting. I think Ev could understand that we were going through these interviews, very fast.
I wanted to also introduce our guests today for this segment of celebrating Project Independence in You. We have Paula Yule, who is the Deputy Commissioner, I think it is, of Project Independence, and my partner over at Lohse, and also Evelyn Roth, former commissioner to Project Independence and for the Department of Services for the Aging, and part of the creation of this radio show. So welcome to you both. And I think I see Kimberly.
That's right. Kim's coming in too.
Kim is signing in right now, Kimberly is the commissioner of Project Independence. And we have been talking and chatting and remembering all about Project Independence in You over these last 10 years. So welcome everyone. It's a free for all, so just go.
Well, I'm going to make the first free for all. I want to thank
all right, Otto, you go first.
For getting me involved with this whole thing. You and Madge Kaplan were at the meeting that I went to, which was prior to the radio, which encouraged me because of the both of you and your sincerity and enthusiasm for the idea of Project Independence. And I want to thank you for getting me involved because it's been a great run. You got me involved with the radio also. So you're not here, but you're not forgotten. Trust me. You were great influence.
Thank you, Otto. Otto, if I could have designed a robot perfect Project Independence senior volunteer, it would have been you.
That's right. We got to figure out how to clone Otto. That's what we try.
You have been just fantastic, supporting all the work that we did and fighting for us when we needed it, and being there all the time. And I have to thank you for that. And I'm so glad that we've remained friends. And
yes,
Otto's 10 years old. Do you believe it?
I think I'm going to be 85 next week.
He is. That's right.
Yeah. Where did that go?
I don't know, you two. Where did that go?
Well, I've been a lucky man so far, so we take it one day at a time, and no major crisis. A couple here and there, but they all worked out fine. So one day at a time.
Certainly, one day at a time. So we were talking with the supervisor before, and kind of a little, thinking about the first time we were all a guest on the show, and how everybody's nervous until the first 10 seconds when you find out that we're just chatting. It's not an interview. People. I mean, you do have to prepare a little bit, but how nice of a setting that was, and how comfortable and helpful it is to have people talk when they're not nervous, because you get a lot more information when you have that kind of setting, and you do want to provide information. And Kristina, like you were saying, used to have 15-minute segments. So we'd have I remember when we would be in the studio And
It's so fun. It goes by
in and out, and yeah.
because I was
so
the first
fast, and
show.
also, it was busy. Like you had a
Yeah, it
lot
was
of
busy.
prep.
Because Ev, let's see if Ev can. So on the first show that we ever had, we had on the supervisor at the time, which was John Kamen. So he was our first 15 minutes. Then we went to emergency preparedness, which was Andy DeMartin at the time. Then we went to Dale over from North Shore LIJ, who talked about flu shots and vaccines. Then we played clips from our one of our Hofstra conference about transportation and mobility management. And then we ended the show with the Romeos, which was David Linden and Jerry Peretzman. So I'm exhausted even thinking about, the 15 minutes of that. We do hour segments on each of those topics now, which doesn't seem like enough time. So that's really quite the jam-packed show.
Kristina, when we first, Jerry Peretzman, you mentioned Jerry, he was the one who originally thought that Project Independence needed its own radio station.
Right.
And he came to an advisory committee meeting, which is where we got all of our ideas for programming from our members, from the community. And he said, let's look into a radio station for Project Independence so that we can keep seniors informed about everything. And so we did. We looked into it. The FCC was at that time awarding low, whatever you call it,
low frequency licensing,
for local stations.
Yeah.
And just as we started to look into it, they rescinded those licenses. So we couldn't get that. So we went and we had an intern who called around to all the colleges, the radio stations, to see if any of them would give us their time. And we went and we met with Dan Cox. And we said, we want our own radio station. And he laughed for 15 minutes. And he said, there is no way that you guys can fill 7 days a week of radio. Why don't you start with 2 hours? And he gave us the 2-hour segment on this radio station. And there was not one of us who had any experience in the radio, right, Paula?
Correct. Not at all.
And we were just feeling our way. And it turned out to be the most remarkable and exciting and wonderful experience. And Kristina turned out to be the most incredible producer of radio that anyone ever seen. Dan couldn't believe it, and he still can't get over it. And of course, we brought in the volunteers, and it's been just wonderful. And
also working with all those wonderful engineers, the students over at the college.
Yeah.
They're so connected.
And look who just came in to join us. We got
I
Dan.
couldn't help it. I love Evelyn Roth so much. She is one of my favorite people of all time because she was our first host on this show. This show was important. I tell you why the show is important more than just, it was all about timing. 10 years ago, WCWP had become a local station again. We had been part of a network with our sister station in Southampton. And we sold our Southampton station. And one of my dilemmas was, how am I going to fill all this time? So when you brought me that idea, I'm like, how are you going to fill all that time? And one of the things I wanted to do was reconnect with the local community, because our Southampton station had basically just was retransmitting on our air stuff for Southampton, which made no sense whatsoever to our local community. So it was great. And when you called and you came in and we had a good laugh about you running your own radio station, 2 hours I thought was the perfect thing. And you were the perfect host. And you are the anchor of what became the talk programming at this station. You were the first real live talk show we had done in a very, very long time. Here, it had been the network had us when I was a student here in the late 70s, early 80s.
When Manhattan was a prairie.
Yes, when Manhattan was a prairie. This station was a local powerhouse, actually. It was very, very popular. And then in the late 80s, 1989, actually, they hooked us up with that network. And for almost 10 years or 11 years, it was a nightmare. So it was great to come back and do local radio for communities again. And the town of North Hempstead was a perfect fit for us, especially what we were doing, because we were trying to attract, an older audience, which I think is a more dedicated audience to radio. And you guys fit the bill perfectly. But I do remember Jerry very fondly, and his drive and his determination to make sure that you guys were going to do radio, and I'm proud to know him, proud to know all of you actually. And it's great. This is great. 10 years, go figure.
That's right. You can't get rid of us, Dan.
And just so you know, because you mentioned it before, producing a radio or television show is not an easy thing. It's not at all. And I thought for sure you guys would fall flat on your face. And then you found this incredible young lady who has grown into the job perfectly. I've known radio producers and television producers in my professional career that couldn't hold a candle to Mrs. Lou.
Well, thanks, Dan. Here we go. We thought we'd get through it.
And actually, I'm sitting here with a friend of mine, one of our alumni, who's training because we're going to be using this equipment for our homecoming. And he said to me, "Hey, would Kristina like to produce the show we're doing on October 15th?" Because it's right after this show is the start of homecoming on October 15th, and we're going to be doing a show right out of this room. So, yeah, she's amazing. We could talk about her all day. And yes, yeah, I hate to compliment him because he's already got a fat head, Otto. But Otto is another person who, when the pandemic hit and we knew we had to go to this new way of doing things, I needed the most technologically savvy senior I could find, and nobody more than Otto. So this really worked out well. I'm extraordinarily proud of what you guys and the station has accomplished in the last 10 years. I think it's been an extraordinary relationship between the university and the town of North Hempstead. And despite the fact that I may retire from here at some point,
at some point, that's right.
I hope this show continues on for another 10 years. So congratulations. And Evelyn, it's lovely to see you.
Hey, Dan, it's always good to have a little part-time thing. Maybe you could work part-time.
Well,
for like 2 hours a week.
Maybe just maybe just on Friday mornings. I'll come
There we
in.
go. Yeah, right. Forget everything else. Just work on Fridays. The
That's
rest,
right.
whatever.
We don't care what you can do with the rest of your time.
I can find plenty to do with the rest of my time.
Dan Cox,
Yes, ma'am.
I think we got to go to break.
Yeah, but I've kind of flushed the format this morning for you guys. It's
Okay.
the 10th anniversary.
He knew we'd be rogue.
We've gone a little bit rogue, but yeah, if you want to go to break, we go to break. That actually would probably be a good thing.
I think you should take us to break.
Take me.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, you're listening to Project Independence on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
So welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I am your host, or among one of the hosts today for this 10-year celebration of Project Independence in You. I'm Rebecca Miller. Our co-host, Otto Lohse, and of course, radio show producer, Kristina Lou. We have some great guests, Evelyn Roth, who is the former commissioner of Project Independence and also established this fantastic radio show. We also have Kimberly Corcoran-Galante, who is our commissioner currently, and I think she's in a vehicle, but we will be able to communicate. And the lovely Paula Ewell, who is the deputy commissioner for Project Independence, and my partner, I always like to refer to her as, and a friend forever, Paula. So I know, Kimberly, you're en route somewhere. So where are you?
I promise. I am I am not driving. I found a lovely place with internet and stuff like that. So, but I did not want to miss this, regardless of where I was, because it was wonderful hearing the history, because in so many ways I got to grow up with Project Independence and with the radio show, and just listening and seeing Evelyn and Paula and Rebecca and Otto and Kristina and Dan. It really is it's such a special time. And I wish I'm a hugger, and all I want to do is just hug everybody. But evidently I have to keep my phone horizontal because Kristina gave me all these rules and regulations. And if I start hugging, it might not work out. But this is just a decade. And I'm only 21 years old. So,
I know that's Otto told me I was green as grass when we started. So I'm going to use that. I like that.
Well, I would say it was true.
We were all 10 years younger.
Yes, we were all, and I had a much lighter, a different hairdo, as we all were talking about. But this is a special thing. A decade, you're double digits.
I know.
Two full hands. This is amazing. And I'm just so happy that I'm in some way a part of this journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm honored. I feel like this is like getting an Oscar, an Emmy, a Tony, like to just have this like special moment with all of you together. So thank you. And I have to say, you're all just such special people, because, I loved listening how this started as an idea from one of our residents, and a special resident who was part of one of our ambassadors for Project Independence, and what it has grown into. And you're very special people, and the fact that you come in every Friday into so many people's homes and to their heart and to their spirit, it's not an easy task. And I know it may be only 2 hours on a Friday, but I know it is hours of love and care that makes this happen each week. So mwah, I am so proud of everybody here. I love you guys so much. I am so impressed with the joy and love you guys bring each week.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Kim. The show is great. I mean, Kristina, you are a fabulous producer. Otto, we're all great, but it wouldn't be what it is without the programs and services and people and the Project Independence team and what we do, because Project Independence's programming is really why we're here and what we promote, and our partners, and so many of our partners we bring on. Paula, you have any kind of, I want to say, memorable moments with Project Independence in you, or anything that comes to mind just because we're celebrating an anniversary? Something that you cherish. I know one of your favorite memories is when we actually got to hire Kristina. So, I mean, we could talk about that.
I'll say, thank you, Evelyn. That happened for us. Well, obviously, everything with Kristina is my favorite moment. So we certainly could never find one. And I think I've talked about before on the show that we almost didn't find Kristina because she came in as an intern from Adelphi University, her second year internship in her MSW degree. And Kristina and I kept missing each other on the phone. And I kind of had said, I don't want to say finally, but the day came and I said, one more try to reach this young lady, Kristina, because at that point we had about 5 interns. We had a lot of interns to interview. I said, I'm going to try one more time, and then she's going to have to go in the note pile because I have to move on. And luckily, that last call connected me to Kristina. And before we knew it, we were over in town hall in John Kamen's conference room with Evelyn and myself. And in came Kristina like a ray of sunshine and energy and goodness and kindness. And she sat across from all of us. So to put her on the spot a little bit. And I will never forget Kristina, you have to submit writing, like a writing sample, before you when you're being interviewed. And I read Kristina's writing sample and it just touched me. And I said, boy, if we can get this wonderful, fabulous new social worker in this new fabulous program that I can't even explain to Kristina. You know, we're interviewing people saying, well, this is going to be something very different. You know, and but luckily, you know, Madge had already passed away. I can hear you, Beck.
I was going to say, when you asked her for a sample of writing, I thought you were going to say she gave you a scrapbook.
I know. That would be nice, though. But, you know, so Kristina came in, and within, I mean, very, very quickly, Ev would probably remember better, we had a very significant grant to write. Evelyn was our very beyond expert grant writer, and she asked Kristina to help her. So Evelyn was in the seat I'm in now. Kristina, we were across the hall, and we used to hear Kristina across the hall. And it was great. And she'd go over, and I remember Kristina laying out all the documents and like, we have to get this grant. And from that point on, everything Kristina has done has been wildly successful. And look, we wouldn't be here, you know. So
well, I would be, well, you know, I have to say, all the compliments are fabulous. But, you know, I'm fortunate.
There were all these techie pieces that had to be done. And at that point, I was all thumbs on the computer. I had no idea what they were talking about. So I could write the pieces, but I couldn't put them together. And Kristina did that. You didn't tell the funniest thing about our interview with Kristina, and I'm going to keep that a secret.
Okay,
good.
But you know, when I zoomed into the program, the supervisor was talking at the very end of her interview about communications. And this has been really the key to the success of Project Independence. And the centerpiece of our communications is, of course, the radio show, but we do the newsletter. We, of course, have the 311 call center. We have the advisory committees. We are in constant communication with and I'm saying we, like I'm still there, like I haven't been retired for years. And so I think that's really the key to the success of the program. And Kristina helps us do a lot of that.
Yes.
Helps you guys.
Yeah, helps us. And, you know, the only other thing, Beck, to answer your question is what I've enjoyed through the years. First of all, John's not on our interview today, but John comes from a social work perspective. And when I would come on and talk, John was the host and Otto, and we get to talking, it's very rare you get to talk about your practice as a social worker, what it is we do, how do we go out in the field. So I would be able to come in and really talk about the good work the nurses and the social workers are doing, the real heart-to-heart work that we do in Project Independence. And this was really one of the only opportunities, other than when we get to go out and do community education a little bit, this was the opportunity I had to say, you know what, here's what we do. And if you need help, here's how you reach us. And John had so many interesting questions. And like Rebecca said earlier, it would go by so fast that you wouldn't even know, like, hey, wait a minute, I'm off already, you know, but, and I also get to hear Kristina all week working on producing this show. So when we say how much time it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. And the quality of the guests that Kristina brings in is really just amazing. So I learned something from her every week.
But that's what's great about the show. I always say it doesn't, like, you know, it's not just an interview and then, okay, close it, great job.
Right.
You know, it really is something that broadens our Project Independence program as a whole. You know, the information we get, you know, and it's great because, you know, having these hour-long interviews now, you could really get to the heart of, you know, the program or the issue or whatever it is. So to bring that information back to the team, I mean, I think everyone knows I'll come back and say, oh, I found this great resource, or I'll send it out, you know, to our social workers and nurses. it's really special because it's, that's what Project Independence is these community connections and partnerships. So it's really fun to, do that. And I know Otto loves to give me the task. If I found this person in a newspaper, can you find them? So it's like fun. I get to be like a little bit of like Sherlock Holmes, and track these people down.
Just Evelyn, you mentioned advisory committees, and I remember in the beginning the only one we had was New Hyde Park.
Mhm.
And then they said, okay, set them up wherever. And I remember going with you on the first meeting at every advisory committee.
That was your job.
And basically doing a spiel on why you should be a member of the advisory committee. And I still believe that the advisory committee is a little different right now because of Zoom. And I'm hoping we do go back to live advisory committee meetings because friendships were developed from those meetings that are hard to do through Zoom, to be honest about it. And I do adapt to Zoom.
Mhm.
But that was really getting the feet on the street back then, getting the word out, as you mentioned, communications within Great Neck, within Mineola, within Port Washington or wherever. It worked out to be a great way to get it going. And I believe most of these areas pre-COVID had a pretty active advisory committee. And it's difficult now because they're kind of one big fat advisory committee, and there's a little less chatter among the people that way, as opposed to the way when it was live.
Otto, I keep saying this, but it's true. Every great program idea that we implemented in Project Independence came out of an advisory committee meeting.
And that's a great way to go to break. We have to take a quick break. We'll continue celebrating Project Independence in You, 10-year anniversary, WCWP.org, 88.1 FM. We'll be right back.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You here at 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, your host for today, along with Otto Lohse, our co-host, and Kristina Liu, the radio show producer for the past 10 years. It feels so weird saying that. Like, really? The past 10 years? So we have very interesting guests right now. We have Kimberly Corcoran Galante, who is our current commissioner for Project Independence, and she's in her car. Technology is great, and we can see her and hear her. We have Evelyn Roth, who is a former commissioner, and talking about Project Independence in You, when it all started, the radio show, and Paula Ewell, deputy commissioner. And Paula, over the break, we were, chatting a little bit, but I know that there's somebody very special you really wanted to talk a little bit about.
Yes, I mean, to both Evelyn and Otto's point about communication, and then how all our programming has come from our advisory boards, our advisory committees, I said we cannot forget Nancy Mizrahi, who was our Director of Senior Citizen Affairs, and how wonderful that Kristina has been promoted to that position. But I did want to just say that Nancy gave her absolute all to planning and executing and participating in the advisory meetings. You could just feel Nancy's energy, getting ready, making sure everything was set up. She would call everybody to remind them. And she would go out of the office to go to the meeting like floating. She loved them. And she came back. She always came back. And what we would do, she'd come back with her clipboard and she'd sit in the office with me and we would go over whatever suggestions came up. And then we'd start to brainstorm, okay, how can we maybe put this into practice? And it's communication, it's everything. But Nancy is now retired happily with her lovely, lovely new grandson.
Yeah.
And we miss her terribly, but I did
We
want to
do.
make sure we said thank you to Nancy.
I would give a backup to that. I thought whenever I got involved with Nancy, which was on a number of things, technical advisory committee meeting we had,
Mhm.
she did a great job, and now she's got a nice deserved retirement.
That's
Basically.
right. That's right. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to forget our Nancy.
Well,
I'd
you
like to
know,
just
we could have predicted how successful she was going to be because Paula, you're talking about when we first hired Kristina. Do you remember when we hired Nancy?
Yes, I do.
We hired her into a civil service position.
Yes.
So we had to use the test
Right.
result. And
Right.
she was the very top. She aced the
Right.
social worker test.
Right. Right.
And she came in and, you know, I was a little nervous. I know we have to take one of the top three.
Right.
Are they going
Right.
to fit in?
Right.
And the minute she walked in and we started talking about the program, I knew that
Right. Right.
she
And
was
Evan
a
and I
winner.
had the meeting, the interview with Nancy, and we looked at each other and we said, "Let's get her quick. Let's offer her this job.
Keep her.
Keeper. She's a keeper." And we just like on the radio show, we talked for an hour. And Nancy and I had a lot of similar backgrounds in our previous jobs. And, you know, she was just a great partner to have here and someone I always knew was here to pass the baton if we needed extra help in our social work. And we had me and Kristina and Nancy was our social work block here in Project Independence. And it was just very special time.
And
Well,
I also just
By
want to
the
give a
way,
special shout out to
Kristina.
Shari, who is part of our
Amazing.
dream team over. And I, you know, as I look around, Otto, excuse me, you know, I don't want you to feel left out in this, but you know, this team of amazing women.
Is Shari on with us?
hey,
Huh?
you know what? I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, well, you know, it's nice. You know, I work with amazing women, and I look around, and we've all been together for so long, and it's just a privilege to really be able to do this. And it really is the dream team. You know, we walk around saying we're Team Austin, and today's the day we can toot our horn because you know why not?
You know, part of the dream team are also all women. Probably the nurses and the social workers who actually are the feet on the street. Not right at the moment, of course, but normally, and who have kept things going via the phone or whatever means they had to. So, you know, that's all part of the dream team, if you will.
It's true. It really
yeah.
is. And it's just, and especially, you know, we've talked about this endlessly, you know, because I always say the radio show has become my therapy throughout the whole COVID pandemic, but it's really, you know, the dedication for everyone that everyone in the department had in a time when we had personal stuff going on and everyone was kind of nervous and anxious, but the residents and serving them and staying connected to them really became our focus in Project Independence. And it was just amazing to really see, you know, and just reflect, because we laugh about this all the time. We're in the hustle and bustle of everything that you don't really ever just sit back and say, oh my God. So that's what I like, what I get to do, because when I do these reports or newsletters, it's kind of my time to reflect and pull together all the amazing things that that Project Independence has done and continues to. So kudos to all of us.
Kristina, my dear, as long as we're looking back at the 10-year history of the radio show, whatever happened to the Lone Ranger?
That's right. You know, we do have, I must say to you, when we have repeat shows, the days that we're off, we do, you know, put in some old time radio. We do that. But, you know, we had so much content that we don't have enough time in the day to even have old time radio because we had so much to put in. But
I love those old segments. And, you know, Dan was talking about how it's us older folks who are really dedicated to radio listeners. And that's why I thought that if we devoted a little bit of time to old time radio, that we might attract some more folks to the station. And Mr. Keen, Tracer of Lost, Otto, remember those?
I remember all of them, Boston, Blackie.
well, it was fun going through that because remember, there were so many we couldn't play. So then we had to figure out what we were allowed to play and whatnot. And you know, some of my favorite things, Ev, when I was also looking through, the diverse segments we've had over the years, we did a whole veterans interview project. And those to me will be some of my absolute favorite, because a lot of times Ev and myself would do home visits to these veterans' homes. And, we would have our little, because that was a whole nother task. We're like, all right, how are we going to record with this little recorder device? But it worked out, we figured it out. And those were just incredible, because being in the homes, they would pull out their medals.
These were World War II veterans.
Yep, World War II. And you remember that one house, Ev, when he had all those beautiful medals on the wall? So those to me are some of my absolute favorites. And on top of the vets, we've interviewed so many interesting residents from North Hempstead, whether they were PI members or, radio show committee members. Those are some of my absolute favorite, because North Hempstead has a great whole database of amazing seniors who have had great careers, and their stories have just been incredible. So to me, those are some of my favorite.
Ev, do you remember, I'm positive you were the host at the time, there was a veteran that we had on, and he talked about being in France, and the sergeant told him to go down this trench
Yes.
to the other end.
Yeah.
And he gets to the other end of the trench, and he, lo and behold, confronts a German soldier.
Right.
And the two of them look at each other, and neither one of them wanted to shoot the other, fortunately, and they both walked away.
Yes.
That to me was one of the more, that was like what movies are made of.
Right.
That
I
was an
don't remember the
amazing,
man's
amazing.
name.
And
Yeah.
Otto, you know what else was an amazing moment for me on a totally different note? When we had the guy who talked about having gone to medical school in France during the war, and came in confrontation with a German soldier.
We
And
talk
he
about that one
used-
all the time.
He used the F-bomb
Yep.
on the radio show. And we
I think
all
that was our
looked
one and only F-bomb. Dan can correct me if I'm wrong.
at her,
But I
right.
remember us all looking at each other and we were like, oh Lord, what just happened here?
Well, we did have another one that wasn't quite the F-bomb, but it was the guy from the old chain of grocery stores.
Oh, Balducci.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
That was him. No, that was him.
Yeah.
He
Oh, that
the
was
one-
him. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Same
And I
guy.
ran to Dan at the end of the show and I said, what do we do? And he said, I think we had to file some kind of a report and then wait to see if there were complaints.
I know. We thought we were going to be
Goodness.
canceled.
Yeah, there were no complaints, thank goodness.
That's right. We have quite the edgy audience. They let it slide. It was all in context. But that was certainly
Good stuff, as Madge Kaplan used to say. Good stuff,
Yeah.
good stuff. Not to get off the subject a little bit, but when I first kind of started jumping in to host a radio show or guest host or whenever you needed me, and my friends were like, Rebecca, how do you do that? It's 2 hours. And I say, oh, I don't do anything. Kristina does it all. She hands me a packet. It's got everything you can imagine in there. I just have to look at it. I have to do a little research now because I have to try to up Otto, because he'll research somebody and he'll go, in 1948, you had a mahjong, you were playing mahjong.
That's right. He'll find the hidden fact.
It's like he gets these little tidbits about people's lives. And I'm like, God, I missed that one, But aside from that, Kristina pulls together the show and everybody has any kind of information you think you would need. So there's never a time where you're shocked by, except for, well, we did have a guy, I don't know, remember Kristina, the guy he was World War II veteran, and he talked about, he was going,
Oh, yes.
now, and kind of the people that he saw and how excited all the veterans were getting, the young men on the
I like
ship.
that's a good way to frame it. I like how you
yeah,
framed it.
he was, we were like, okay, how about those Mets? All right, so we are actually, we have to take a break. I want to thank Kimberly, Evelyn, and Paula for joining us and celebrating. And clearly without you guys, of course, Kristina, and Shari and Nancy, we all wouldn't be here. And Otto, the most amazing volunteer. But we are going to break now. You've been listening to Project Independence in You at 88.1 FM, WCWP.org, and we will be right back.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
Oh, welcome back to Project Independence in You, talk radio at 88.1 FM, WCWP.org. We have been talking with a lot of guests about Project Independence in You radio 10-year anniversary. And here we are celebrating the 10-year anniversary with Otto Lohse and Kristina Liu and Dan Cox, the director. Thank you for all you do to help keep this going for another 10 years. So I think our contract has another 10 years. And, you know, of course, John Ryan, you know, the show.
Yeah, that's what I want to mention him. You know, we miss him. Everyone knows he's been having some health stuff, but he is so a part of this family, and I love him, you know, professionally and personally. And we're wishing for him a speedy recovery. And I promised him when he comes back, we're going to have another celebration. So we'll just have to do this all. We'll have to give each other compliments, which is so hard for us to do.
Well, ditto here, John. Ditto here, if you happen to be listening.
That's right. We love him very much. So, and I have to say, you, you know, you were talking about how you don't fare, but you happen to be a natural in the hosting world. Clearly, it's in your blood. You know, I think Ev passed that down to you. But I have to thank you because there's, you know, it's nice, this format, to have three people. You know, we always talk about it, it's just like a nice way of flowing. So you step in whenever I need you, and I have to thank you, as always, for doing that because it works out well. And we like you, Beck, so it works out well.
You'll keep me, thank you. It's my pleasure. And I'm a team player here, and, you know, I love you guys, and this show is amazing. And you know, Kristina is amazing. So Kristina can, at like a heartbeat, figure anything out. So she hands me a paper. She goes, "Oh, here's for the show, Beck. You know, there's like 10 pages, all in charts and tabs and grids. Here's what you're going to need for the show." And hands me this packet of every show. I guess I hosted, or maybe I was on 58 shows. I mean, I can't believe it. And I'm like looking through them all. But my favorite moment, and it was like John and we were like giddy little girls, was when we did your first big birthday bash.
I was going to say, those are some of my favorites.
Remember, Otto, it was like we had everyone calling in, but it was such a surprise. I still have it on my phone somewhere. You know, you were shocked because, you know, it's not easy throwing a party for Kristina, because like you could say, Kristina, you know, I wish I had brought party favors. I'm having people. It's kind of like a fall theme. And in her car and pocketbook and in pocket, she's like, "Oh, let me see what I have." And before you know it, you've got like, you know, a tree with leaves falling. And so I knew I had to, you know, we were nervous. John and I were like, "What?"
Well, it was the most amazing thing ever. It was really just absolutely beautiful.
And I think John said it best. He goes, "You know, Beck," he goes, "I think you should go to the dollar store," because I know and I went there and it was like, "Oh, I get it," you know. And it was great. We made Kristina cry the whole show.
You did.
She was just in tears. But that was a moment, you know.
It was. You know, and that's what, you know, I was looking through all these guests because I was writing. It's just really so diverse. It's crazy in these 10 years because I feel like we've covered like every topic. But some of my favorites are, you know, obviously when we get personal on the show. I think a lot, and especially being on Zoom, we forget sometimes that we're being recorded. You know, and we kind of talk about our lives, but I think that's what makes the show so special because it's things people who are listening to can relate to. And, you know, we've had our families on the show, you know, which has been nice. You know, Otto's had his daughters, his grandchildren. I had my aunt on the show. I had my dad on the show. you know, and then we've had little recordings of messages from people, you know, so it's those moments I think that make it so special and stand out in our brains, you know, and it's just and we had Dan's grandson made his debut, you know, a couple of weeks back, you know, months back, I should say. And that was like fun, you know. So it's I think it's on top of these amazing topics we're having, you know, we've shared so many life changes and events and beautiful things like that. So
This might be a strange way to look at this thing, but we have a great time doing this show, and we don't really know if the people who are listening to it are having a great time.
well, they must
But,
be because I haven't gotten any complaints. So
well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, you know,
no, and it's
I mean, because basically we're sitting here looking at a laptop, and I'm looking at Kristina, I'm looking at Rebecca now on a laptop, and we're just having a chat. And I can understand how people who do these shows with millions of people looking or watching, but they don't see them. So
yeah.
they really have no idea who's on the
Yeah.
other end, you know?
No,
And
we're fortunate, you know.
that's how it is with this, I think.
It
you know,
is, and it's, you know, I laugh because when there's, you know, I'm scheduling a guest and some guests are more nervous than others and they want the full details and whatnot. Like, okay, are you going to give me you know, can you send me Q&A's question? And I was like, whoa. I was like, let me just break it down. I was like, this show, I was like, picture sitting literally at a round table and you're just like having a conversation. I said, there's no specific question answer. I said, you know, we have prepped outlines and materials, so we have a background on it. But I think that organic conversation, you know, and I say this all the time, is really how you get the information across best. You know, I think we've all been through presentations where, you know, it'll be on the same top and you're sitting there and it's not really connecting to you. But I think, you know, having a discussion with these amazing speakers, and I mean, these people have amazing credentials, and especially through Zoom, we've had access to them, you know, and when it's just having a conversation and, you know, you guys asking great questions, I think just makes it a difficult topic easier to understand. You know, I think about Medicare, right? The Medicare open enrollment that we do every year. That's such a complex topic for people. And that's right. It's coming up in October in 2 weeks, I believe. And, you know, so by you guys having this open discussion and asking questions, it makes the listener able to understand, you know, and it's really wonderful. I mean, we've hit topics, we've had community organizations on, we've had veterans, we've had elder law and mental health and government, and then we've had, you know,
rock stars.
We've had comedian, we've had rocks, we've had, you know, the best Otto. It was actually, I think it was just me and Otto. I think we're the only, I think we hosted the show together, Otto, when we had the people who were doing the Honeymooners play.
Yes.
And that was so fun.
They were fun. Yeah, they were good.
They came in like full Honeymooners like gear and had like nailed down their like whole demeanor. So that, you know, the Honeymooners is like my mom and dad's like show.
That was in person, that one.
That was in person. That's right. That was in person in the studio. So it's like, you know, so we could have topics like that, you know, but then talk about scams or caregivers or.
How about Oscar Michelin talking about the rightful reversing wrong convictions?
That was so interesting. And that's what I will always say is my favorite part of how this show has evolved, you know, and we've alluded to it throughout, you know, all these segments, but it's really like, obviously it's senior talk, we're project independent. A lot of things are senior based, but it's really become a community show, you know, and to be able to, and it opened up what kind of guests I research or get on the show now, because it's fun, you know, because like you said, Otto, having that on is a topic anyone can listen to and learn.
So much of it is good for all ages. But, you know, also I want to give a shout out to Ron Petula, who comes on a lot and really provides a ton of information, you know, and a lot of that elder law stuff, just learning what he is telling us is a fortune. So he really, and he continually comes on, and like you were saying, Kristina, about community, you know, he really cares too. I mean, it's, but he provides a lot of stuff.
So amazing is that it makes you, you know, believe, you know, I have my good vibes shirt on today.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's really, you know, we're in such a time where there's a lot of negativity. I think we all can agree on that. You know, if you turn on the news at any point, you know, your head will explode. But you know, this show is really about the positive and the community connection and the good that's going on in the world. You know,
I'm sorry, but I think also some of it is to encourage people to do things they should do,
Yep.
like advanced directives, like learn technology, like, just the whole long list, preparedness for emergencies. And
it is, and it's giving people education, you know, because I think it's hard. There's a lot to keep track of and things to do. You don't know where to begin, you know, and I think that's always been a Project Independence's kind of thing is we get it, you know, that's why if you can call through and you might not even know what you need, you just need help, you know, and it's a great starting point. And, you know, having all these different guests on who are really educating you and helping you to understand certain things that are intense, you know. And you could also learn one of my favorite segments ever, because it was when Otto and John Ryan turned bright red. We had on Fran Green, who we've had on a
Fran,
bunch of
I love
times,
Fran.
who is the author of, and she is just one of my favorite people, who did the Flirting Bible, and it was a Valentine's Day special, and she was talking about flirting with Otto and John, and I couldn't breathe. I was sitting in the background. I couldn't catch my breath because they were both so red. And she was very into Otto. She liked Otto's flirting technique. She was very into it, but John was mortified. And
That was a cute one.
John, and I wish John was here, because another moment, his cringeworthy moment, which I will bet money on, is when we had the topic of incontinence on and bladder control, and he didn't even know how to introduce it because he was so mortified. It was such I think
was I on that show too? Because
you might have been.
I remember
you probably were.
I brought the topic up and he was like, "Thank you for doing that."
Yeah,
so
because he was like, "I don't even know how to introduce this." But you know, it's those moments. You know, we certainly have, like I said, just to look at all these, you know, on a spreadsheet. There's so many things that are difficult things to talk about. You know, we had on another one of my favorites is when we had on all the people that participated in the North Hempstead Civil Rights documentary, you know, and that was just so moving and to hear about it, you know, and these are difficult conversations, you know, to
Bernice
have.
Sims. Bernice Sims.
And Bernice is amazing. I talk to her all the time. She always gives me a call and asks me for different resources.
She's
and
great.
stuff.
I did that show. I remember.
Yes.
I actually made a note of that. We had Bernice Sims, Viviana Russell, Lee Seaman, and we sat around the table.
And supervisor.
Yeah, right. Judy. And it was about the North Hempstead Civil Rights documentary, which led to very open conversation.
Yeah, it really did.
About race relationships and
but that's what I'm saying. Like it's
what Bernice went through as a young girl back when. You know, that was a great show, I thought. And
that really was.
Probably be nice to get her back on sometime.
I was sweating.
Absolutely.
That was you know, to keep it going. And what? That's
Dan's
it?
got some nerve. He's trying to wave us off.
1 minute? No, we refuse. Well, concluding now our 10-year anniversary show. What a great show. Thank you all so much.
A fun trip down memory lane. And we have a lot of great shows that are going to be coming up. So the fun will continue, you know, next week.
Keep listening and, you know, we'll keep doing provide great programming. Right, Kristina?
That's right. The dream team.
Otto,
we love John. We love our radio co-hosts.
Love to John. And we'll be back next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. You were listening to Project Independence of You, 10th anniversary show, 88.1 FM, WCWP.org. Have a wonderful weekend.